going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a good Friday night. And we're back with some late night news. Yes, some late night news to discuss. No embargoed press conference, though, this evening, of course, with the game being on a Sunday. That means that the embargoed part of the press conference comes Saturday night, and when it comes to that, that means, you know, people are busy on Saturdays. I'm doing Survivor Series tomorrow, Saturday, on my own channel. Be sure to check that out. But we do have some stuff to chat about. We do have some stuff to get into. Probably the biggest news stories actually to get into broke just after the press conference finished as well, regarding Mason Mount and his injury, the latest injury. Now, there was kind of conflicting information about this, particularly when it came to some of the quotes as well from Erik ten Hag. But it looks like Mount could be out for a while. Also, we've got an update on Marcus Rashford and his suspension status ahead of the trip to Galatasaray on Wednesday in the Champions League as well. Confirmation on who's going to actually be on the touchline for Manchester United tomorrow, of course, because it's not going to be Erik ten Hag. He's serving a suspension. He's going to be up in the stands, as he says, positive, has a better overview of proceedings as well. So that could be a positive. So there's still plenty to get into this evening. So I hope everyone's doing well. Let me know where you're watching from. I know with these late night news streams, we get quite a diverse audience. Not that we don't have one anyway here at United View. We certainly do, a massive global international audience. But I know with these late shows, sometimes you can get people that tune in for the lives aren't able to tune in for the lives as well. So let me know where you're watching from. And also, because it's late, well, it might be just our normal time for some people. Get your questions in. Get your super chats in. We'll have a bit of an interactive one for this evening as we think about what's going to be a really busy and hectic week, an important week also for Manchester United. Of course, Everton Sunday, Galatasaray on Wednesday, Newcastle then, I think that's on the Saturday, isn't it? Is that what it is? On the Saturday? All away from home, all big matches. So we're going to be getting into all of it. So yes, let me know where you're watching from and get your questions in as well. Imran says the late night news. Is this even connected? I want to make sure you get comments up on the screen. Come on, Owen, sort yourself out. Jeez Louise. Imran says hopefully this pop up now. If it doesn't, then it's broken, which is not a good start. Imran says the late night news. Mish says, I've been hungover all day. Send help. Well, Thanksgiving. I forgot about that. Thanksgiving. Actually, that's a good point as well. If you are celebrating Thanksgiving, or you have been celebrating Thanksgiving yesterday, and you're having a good Thanksgiving weekend, I hope you enjoyed yourself. Obviously, over here in the UK, certainly. That's not really our thing, is it? But eating lots of turkey and eating lots of food, well, I can certainly subscribe to that. I mean, why couldn't you? Who couldn't subscribe to that? Vegetarians, obviously. But then I suppose vegetarians celebrate Thanksgiving. They just probably have like not actual, turkey or something like that. I mean, tangents. We're going all over the place already, but. But there you go. Tabaslaw is watching from Norway. We've got, obviously, Lucas Chan from Saskatchewan, Canada, as well. Who else have we got in the chat as well? Austin says, dinner view in the States for me. There you go. Ars, big up from Holland, from the Netherlands. Prod by Palmerius says Leicester. Where else people watching from as well? Jamal's watching from Ethiopia. Big up to you. And yes, as people start to trickle into as well. So there you go. What are people saying here also in the chat? Miles says, who is on the touchline in Ten Hag's stead? I say McLaren, but he has to do the Dutch accent. Or Steve McLaren. No, it's Mitchell van der Gaag, has been confirmed as replacing him on the touchline. Got Garsha watching from Cambridge as well. So we got plenty of people filing in this evening for some late night news. Let's start off talking about Mason Mount, though. Again, it was a story that broke just after the press conference ended a few hours ago, but we've got kind of more details surrounding it now. It was first broken by actually the Insider United Twitter account, which, I mean, what a season they're having. I mean, talk about, quality performers. There's not been many of them for Manchester United this season. But the Insider United account certainly has been on fire when it comes to a lot of the stories. I think that the first one that they really broke, I believe, was the Jadon Sancho, like, he's not apologising, or he's refused to apologise. And then obviously Sancho or his team or whoever deleted the tweet. And everyone was like, bullshit, you're wrong. And then turns out, and then I think that was like, wow, that was pretty close. And then the next one I think was the Wan-Bissaka one when Wan-Bissaka was injured, and I will hold my hands up. I was like, well, he played at the weekend and he left the stadium fine. So he's injured, he's done his hamstring, and they were right. So credit to them, certainly. So they said that the Manchester United midfielder Mason Mount is out for a month with a calf injury. And then Erik ten Hag kind of confirmed that Mount had picked up an injury, but didn't say the severity or anything like that. Ten Hag had said, quote, Mason picked up an issue, so we have to assess if he's available for the game or not. And this is when it kind of got a bit weird, because I think Chris Wheeler from the Daily Mail initially said that Mount was going to be undergoing a fitness test to see if he was available for the game tomorrow. But if what Insider United was saying is accurate, I mean, a month. I mean, there's a big difference between, is he going to be available for tomorrow, or no, he's not going to be available for 4 weeks. That's quite a big difference there, certainly, isn't it? Then Chris Wheeler, I guess, caught up to the information from Insider United, because he said Mount's calf injury is still being assessed, but early indications are that it could be 3 to 4 weeks, aka a month. So, I mean, it's not a good start, is it? It's not a good start for Mason Mount and Manchester United. Played the first 2 games of the season, then picked up, I think it was a hamstring injury against Spurs, missed a bunch of time, and then now, kind of didn't really get back in the team for a while. Played on the bench, to the point that people were wondering, is there something going on with Mason Mount? I mean, my goodness me, you've bought him 60 million quid, or 55 plus 5 with add-ons, and the guy can't get a game in a team that's not performing very well. What's going on there? And now he's injured and he's out for a month. And one thing we do know about Erik ten Hag, just ask Raphael Varane, if you've got a player that is constantly getting injured and doesn't have the best fitness record, then you're definitely not going to play even more, even when you are available. So I think Mason Mount, I mean, what a challenging start for him. I've seen people already labeling him as a flop, and I'm always, about any signing, I'm always very reluctant, really, really early into their Manchester United career, to describe anyone as a flop. I try and do the courtesy of giving them a season, 18 months, something like that. But you can't ignore that as a signing thus far, it hasn't worked. Clearly, it hasn't worked. Whether that be because plans have changed or circumstance has changed. I mean, this was kind of the point that a lot of people were making at the time, weren't they, when we initially signed Mason Mount, is what's the plan here? Like, where does he fit? It didn't feel like a signing that naturally sort of fit. But you assumed, well, Ten Hag must have a plan. Ten Hag must have a sort of a wider-ranging, more encompassing plan here that he's got in place. And it did kind of seem that for the first couple of games, didn't it, against Wolves and Spurs. But the midfield in those games was so open, and we looked so overrun. And whatever the plan was for Mount and this sort of newer look or more developed Manchester United wasn't working, and Ten Hag had to kind of pivot and change back to maybe something that was a bit more pragmatic. And then Mount got injured as well, so he was having time out of the side. One of his first games back was that Carabao Cup game at Old Trafford when United beat Palace, and I think all of us were like, oh, good, Mount was back and he was good. And then just again, never really just got back into the side, never really played that often. You know, when he did play, he was okay. Not really blow anyone away or anything like that. But it's not worked out thus far. Now, again, for me, I always, I don't like to be like, oh, it's a flop. This signing has completely flopped. Hasn't worked out so far. Doesn't mean that it can't be salvaged. I don't think he's a complete write-off yet or anything like that. I think the concern was that last season, he had quite a few fitness problems last season. And you talk to Chelsea fans, they'll say, look, obviously no one was good last season, so it was very difficult to judge the quality of a player based off last season because every Chelsea player, pretty much to a person, was shocking. But he did have his fitness problems last year too and missed quite a lot of football, particularly in the latter stages of the season. And looks like he's carrying that over. Now, one thing that people have been saying, and I would be interested to know your opinions on this. when it comes to these injuries that we're sustaining now, when does it stop being bad luck? I think that's the key question, and I'm really interested to know what you guys think, because I have seen a lot of discussion with people saying, well, you can be unlucky, but when it's this consistent and when there are sort of muscular injuries like this, calf trouble, thigh trouble, pulled your hamstring, kind of the injuries that we have had to a large degree, there haven't been huge sort of contact injuries. Do United have to take a closer look at themselves? Does Erik ten Hag have to have a closer look at them himself in terms of, am I overworking some of these players? Are my training methods too intense? We've played a lot of football this season, but particularly last season as well. I know that injuries are just rife across football at the moment, and it's probably a testament to how much football has been played for every team. Premier League, Champions League, World Cup, Nations League, or any tournament you can think of. But do United need to take a closer look at themselves realistically as well? Are they getting something wrong? Because it's yet another muscular injury. And for all the talk that we say about, when we get these better players back, and when this player gets back from injury, and when that player gets back from injury, we'll play better. But as I've said a few times recently, it feels like it's a bit of a revolving door. It almost feels like a bit of a falsehood. We celebrate but we're happy that we get, say, Luke Shaw's back from injury. And we go, yes, Luke Shaw's back from injury. But then the next day, the same day, realistically, it's Mason Mount's out though. So it's constantly like 1 in, 1 out, or 2 in, 2 out, or we get a couple of players back just before the international break. Oh, by the way, Højlund and Eriksen are injured. It just feels constant as well, absolutely constant. So I don't know. I do think it is something that United needs to take a closer look at themselves. I do think it's a thing that's prevalent across football at the moment as well. But it is something that United need to have a look at, and maybe Ten Hag and his coaching staff, and certainly the medical department, have to have a closer look at as well, because it's just not sustainable, and it absolutely has hampered our beginning of the season as well. What are people saying in the chat here at the moment? Chris Katsu says £55 million number 7. He set himself high standards. It's okay to say that he hasn't met them. Certainly, I don't think he's met the standards that people expected him to meet. I would argue that I don't know what the standards were for Mason Mount coming into the season, because again, I didn't see necessarily. I mean, obviously, it wasn't this. I don't think anyone. I don't think the standards were not play many games. Certainly not start many games. Be on the bench. Be injured twice. Certainly, that wasn't the standards. But, and it's easy to say this in retrospect, of course, but I don't know what people necessarily expected of him. Again, certainly not this, but I remember I was sitting in this very chair. I wasn't live, but I was sitting in this very chair when the news came through that he was going to be given the number 7, and I was really surprised and taken aback by that. Not because the number 7 has to be a winger or has to be a striker or anything like that, because we've had number 7s be midfielders. But I just, Mason, at the time, that was, I don't know about that. And then you had the discourse and the discussion, hey, it's just a number, who actually cares about the number of a shirt? And you go, well, no, the Man United number 7 shirt does mean something. There is a lineage to that. And I know people will then point to the players that have worn the number 7 and it's not worked out. And I get that. Maybe the lineage isn't as strong as it was, let's say, 10, 15 years ago or something like that. But I did feel like I don't know, but I wasn't sure then about that one. And even now, I'm definitely not sure about that either. I was a proponent of giving the number 7 shirt a rest for a season or so. And I know commercially it's just something United were never going to do. But I was of the mindset of let's have no one have it for a season, and let's see who can pick it up. Like it'll be a more natural option in 12 months' time, because I thought, again, even my sort of longer term planning was maybe eventually it'll go to Garnacho. Shouldn't gone to him this season. If he had a good season, then maybe eventually he'll get it. People were like, oh, Sancho, thank God he didn't get it as well, right? And he wanted it because he's 2 + 5, 25, 7. think when he came to United, that's what he was looking for, was a number 7 shirt, right? So I thought if no one touches it for a year, then particularly coming off of Ronaldo as well, and that might be the best thing. But United are never going to do that, particularly with the commercial side of the club. But now, it just feels even worse, isn't it? And just that doesn't make any kind of sense at all. So the crazy thing too is that for all of the talk about it's a bad injury. I mean, and it's going to sound very callous, but do you miss a player that hasn't actually been playing as well? Do you miss a player that has been on the bench and just coming on here and there? Not to say that you don't miss having a player that's available, because Mason Mount has shown in the past, maybe not so much for Man United, but in the past he can be a quality player, and he does have experience. He's won the Champions League with Chelsea. But so far, it's a real stuttered start to his career, certainly. No doubt about that. What are people saying in the chat here? Scott Dog says, are the Jadon Sancho's issues linked to him not getting the number 7 shirt? I mean, I don't think that's a huge factor or anything like that. I'm sure when you're frustrated with where you're currently at, that's something you can sort of, it's something in your back pocket, perhaps, Sirens in the chat. Better. I still say we still really do need that Owen Siren. And again, come on. Yeah, I'm sure that's something that's probably he was been aggrieved about for a while, but I don't think it's the catalyst for the fallout between himself and Erik ten Hag. Clearly, that seems down to more favoritism, and from Ten Hag's point of view, not apologising and a lack of professionalism. And I think that is something that's been bubbling for a long time, certainly, as well, again, in my opinion anyway. What else are people saying here? Ed says Woodward promised Sancho he'd get the shirt once Cavani leaves. Well, there was a sort of general, I guess, consensus that Sancho would eventually get it. And I don't actually necessarily completely doubt that he was told at one point that he would get it, realistically, right? I think he probably was told that. But alas, he did not get it as well. Imran says he met the standards I expected to meet. Didn't expect anything as well. What else are people saying here? Ed says big up Owen, big up you. Scott says, I do think a pre-season travelling all over the US has impacted fitness and injuries this season. Miles says, we've had the most injuries in the league, played the most or second most games in Europe last season, went on an arduous pre-season, yet Bruno ticks on, we need to clone him. Is that an actual stat in terms of we've had the most injuries in the league? Because is it Newcastle that have the most, I think, at the moment? I don't know if we have the most at the moment. Maybe in totality we've had the most. Can we actually Google that? Is that a stat? Who has had the most Premier League injuries this season? Do they say for the entire club? I don't know if they have. Oh, here we go. Which Premier League sides have been impacted the most by injuries so far this season? Newcastle, they're saying the top. Arsenal, Sheffield United, Manchester United. I don't know if that's actually in order, though. Oh, here we go. Most injured players, Premier League accurate as of the 16th. That's what, about less than 10 days ago, about 8 days ago. So, 10. We've had 10. Or is this currently out of injured? This is the difference. They don't say, is it currently out? Because we've got, I think it's currently out. Currently out right now, Newcastle have 13. Add on Mason Mount for us, we have 11. So Arsenal have 11 as well. So certainly we're way above the average, way above the average, which is not great. But that is the latest when it comes to Mason Mount, out of action for a month, according to Insider United, also according to Chris Wheeler from the Daily Mail. If we get any more details on Mason Mount and his recovery, we'll let you know. But not good, certainly, as well. Not good when you've got a load of big games coming up. Not that, I mean, it's unfortunate because, was it today or the day before, whenever it was, whenever it was, we and Flex were chatting, and we were saying, well, if Eriksen's out, he was saying, well, that means Mason Mount's going to start. And I was kind of on the fence of that anyway, because I thought, well, quite robust midfield. Possibly Ten Hag might go with McTominay and Amrabat instead. And now he's going to probably be forced to go with that. I mean, thinking about it, what midfield can he do? I mean, you've got, in terms of midfield options at the moment, it feels like the injury bug just moves its way forward, realistically. We've had all of these defensive injuries this season, but now we've got 3 central midfielders all out. We've got Casemiro injured, we've got Eriksen injured, and now we've got Mason Mount injured. And I think, in fairness, when you're looking at some of the players for Newcastle or Arsenal, maybe more so for Arsenal as opposed to Newcastle, you know, when people like to count up the injuries, for us, legitimately, when you're counting up the injuries that we've had this season, a lot of them are like starters. I mean, Lissandro Martinez, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Luke Shaw, when they were all out, they're starters for us. Casemiro, Christian Eriksen, they've been starters for us this season. You know, Mason Mount this weekend probably would have been a starter this weekend, because we're quite low when it comes to these midfield options. So I guess that opens the door possibly for your Hannibals, your Kobbie Mainus to come in. I think again tomorrow that's kind of nailed on that the midfield is going to be McTominay and Amrabat. I would think, with Bruno in front of them. Would Ten Hag spring a surprise for Sunday and start a Hannibal Mejbri in that game? Given the atmosphere, and given the 10-point deduction and how up for Everton will be, and they would probably fly into some tackles, I don't know if I'd have Hannibal in that game. I mean, I'm a big Hannibal proponent, realistically. I'm a big Hannibal proponent. I think that when he came in at a time that United were really struggling earlier on in the season, they did really well and put in some really impressive running stats. But sometimes you do watch him play and he worries you, like in terms of getting sent off. I mean, he'll guaranteed first 20 minutes he gets a booking, almost near enough every single time. So I don't suspect he'll start that one. But I mean, if he's probably got a better chance of starting that one against Everton than Galatasaray on Wednesday, right? You know, if he can sort of harness that aggression, and sort of turn it into skillful enthusiasm, then there's a player there. I do like Hannibal. What else we got here? Taberslow says, but I mean, look at this, guys. Okay, it's late night stream. Certain things aren't working for whatever reason. I can't get my comments up on the screen, which I don't know why, which is really annoying me. But apologies for that. For some reason, it's just not working. But Taberslow says, if we get 150 likes, I will give away some memberships. Smash the like button. We are at 55 now. So you've heard it from Taberslow there first. I know it's late, and I know people are celebrating the holidays as well. And I know today we don't have an embargoed press conference to talk about. But Taberslow is saying if we get 150 likes, he will give away some memberships. And you can watch right there the latest episode of UV Raw for free. I mean, you usually membership. You have to obviously pay for the members, join the membership club for free, and you can watch the entire back catalogue. There's 28 episodes. There's some absolute golden stuff in there. Recently, there's been quite a few episodes of UV Raw dropping. Plus, if you are fortunate enough to be gifted the membership by Taberslow, and again, that's random, so don't put that one on Taberslow. It gets handed out randomly for people that are here. But considering there's just over 200 people watching, you've got a pretty good chance of getting that free membership. You can call in as well. Full-time view. Sunday after the game, I'll be live here. And members have the opportunity to call in, have their say on the match, have their say on certain players and certain stories and situations right now at Manchester United. So if you haven't already, click the like button. It's like kind of entering a raffle or entering the sort of lottery. When you click the like button this evening, you're entering. You're entering that possibility. It could be you this evening. If you click the like button, perhaps, maybe. I mean, I'm not promoting gambling or anything like that, but this is possible. So 150. Taberslow has committed to 100. Does anyone want to raise on 150? Anyone 150? Go on up 150. Anyone 150? I don't know. 150. So yes, if you haven't already, click that like button. If you're in bed, I do this quite a lot. I watch YouTube in bed, or sometimes I just have it on. I don't like to sleep in a silent room. that much. I'm one of those people. I've got to have something. Not too loud and nothing too over the top, but I like to have just a bit of noise when I'm going to sleep. So I'll put YouTube on. If I was half asleep, I'm sitting there, drifting away, and then I heard 150 likes, free memberships. I'd be like, sorry? I'd wake up, Scrabble over to the whatever device I'm using. There's several, tablet. Even if you're on the TV, I'd get the remote. I'd be like, right, let's get that going. Find the like button. I'd click it. I would, even half asleep. There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it, and you could possibly get a membership for free as well. So there you go. Chris says, "Oh, I'm watching Bob Ross to sleep." I've tried. I've tried doing that before, but you know what it is? And I'm being really honest with you about the Bob Ross stuff to go to sleep. The sound of the paintbrush wakes me up because he's quite aggressive on his thing. He's on his canvas. He's like, I'm thinking, well, what is that? It's just sometimes a bit like that. I'm a bit, I don't know, but I have tried the Bob Ross stuff to go to sleep, and then also sometimes you start actually listening to it as you're trying to get to sleep, and then I'm wondering what it looks like. So I have to sort of turn over and go, wow, he's describing this picturesque mountain setting. I've got to have a look now to see what it looks like. Does it look like the picturesque mountain setting that he's saying? Maybe. So I've tried that. Sometimes I just like the ambient noise. I like some ambient noise, maybe some, or sometimes some sort of like podcast and that. They can send you to sleep, maybe. So there you go. What else are people saying? Aminor says, Owen, is Mount considered to be a flop? I said this earlier on. Amin Snore, I think you've been sleeping. Again, I said it earlier on. Said that I wouldn't describe him as a flop just yet. I don't like to call anyone a flop. However many months into a United career, I like to give him a season and a bit. Season and a bit. Well, maybe one season or 18 months, depending on circumstances. Like, for instance, at this point, I think it's fair to call Anthony a flop. Price tag, deliverables, what we thought we were getting versus reality, that's a flop. Jadon Sancho, that's a flop. Mason Mount, I still say it's too early to say. As of right now, it's very disappointing. I do think it's a weird one because I don't actually, like I said earlier on, I still don't know what the expectations were, but they weren't this. Certainly they were not this. There's no doubt about that, isn't it, as well? So yeah, I maybe wouldn't say a flop, but there you go. So that's the latest when it comes to Mason Mount. And also, actually, whilst people are saying it, just like, what do you fall asleep to? Because I'm quite curious now. I've seen people saying in the chat. That's the thing with these late night shows. You know me, I'll just divert off into anything. For instance, Ed says sports radio puts me to sleep as well. Just sports radio. Yeah, for me, it's ambient noise. Sometimes TV shows. I'm one of those people. And if you've never experienced this, I recommend it. Ricky Gervais, Carl Pilkington, Steve Merchant. The plethora of content that is out there, put it on, send you right to sleep. Not that it's not good, but brilliant. Like, it's just, yes, as down to XFM. Yeah, go back. I think it's the channel's Man Moth. They've got them all. Like, there's 4 series, and each of the shows an hour long. Go and watch. You'll go straight to sleep. And also, they're good. You can just listen to them as well. And I think they're on Spotify as well. I think. So, if you haven't, go watch them. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I might have just opened up a world for you. But I feel like a lot of people have probably watched that. Yeah. Lucas says, "Oh, what's your favourite food compared to just Josh plain cheese pizza?" Well, look, there's the slander, and Lucas says this because you'll see this on an episode of UV Raw. It's out now, actually. An episode of UV Raw, I think it's episode 25, something like that, is who's the fussier eater. It's a big debate between myself, Just Josh Media, Graphics Guru, Visual Ninja, and Flex is there to sort of moderate, and he's eating his lunch at the time. I don't really have a favourite food, honestly. I don't have a favorite food. Josh is fussier than me. Facts. Like, actually, oh, it's not on this one. My soundboard's been updated as well. Josh is fussier than me.
Tell me when I'm telling lies.
Because he absolutely is. And he'll try and sort of paint me into a corner, or he tries to throw out the vegetarian card and just go, boom, I'm vegetarian though. But he's fussy and he's got weird rules about certain foods and stuff like that as well. He is, and I'm willing to try. I'm willing to try certain foods. Josh isn't even willing to try. That's his problem. And actually, to those people that are members, and possibly some new ones as well, there is an episode of Raw coming up. I think it's like 2 or 3 episodes away, where you get to see behind the scenes at the UV end of season party. And I have a full plate of like Caribbean food for the first time. The first time I have a plate of Caribbean food. I won't spoil it as to my reaction or anything like that, but Flex legitimately plated me up all kinds of food. I can't even remember what they were. All kinds of food, and I had it. That is on a future episode of UV Raw. Only a few episodes away, so now's the time to join. Speaking of the members, as Tabaslav said, 150. He was going to give away some memberships this evening. We're currently at bang on 100. There you go, bang on 100. So if you haven't already, click the like button. Let's see if we can get to 50. Whilst we get there, I do want to talk a little bit about Marcus Rashford, because that was also some news that came out today as well. UEFA have confirmed that Marcus Rashford will be banned for just one game in the Champions League after his red card against FC Copenhagen. That means Rashford will miss Man United's trip to Galatasaray on Wednesday. Obviously, he's got the straight red card in the game against Copenhagen. That stamp, whatever that was, I know this got people upset at the time, but for me, still not a red card. More so that I know people were talking about, because my thing was, well, he doesn't mean it. But people were saying, like, it doesn't really matter if he means it. If he's endangering a player, it's a red card. And I hear that. I think that's a good argument and a good debate to have. My problem is, and you know what I'm going to say, guys, inconsistency. That's my biggest problem with that, because less than 24 hours after, I mean, every time this happens, just a day later, what happens? Endo, Liverpool, stamp, ankle, booking. Every time. And if that red card didn't happen, and I know standards on the floor, we're in the mud, I get it. But if that red card doesn't happen, we comfortably win that game. Comfortably. We're 2-0 up, we're in control. We have the red card. We've got the mentality of a sleeping goldfish, so which is just nothing. And forgetting and sleeping. So, I mean, what's the point at that, at that moment in time? And collapse very quickly. By halftime, it's 2-2. I mean, that just, again, sums up Man United, really, doesn't it? So, but without that red card, it doesn't happen. So I still say I think it was a very harsh red card. And again, it did change the game. But that's why I'm glad that it's only one game. But by that point, look, might be too late. Might be too late by the time he comes back for the game against Bayern Munich, Old Trafford, in a couple of weeks' time. How is everybody feeling about that, actually, about the Galatasaray game? I mean, it is the next two. We have to win our last 2 games. I mean, actually, even just looking at the Champions League group, I haven't even thought that far ahead. Is there still a possibility that if we win both, we still don't get through? Is that what we're looking at? So if we won, look at that form. Look at that form in the Champions League, man. It's terrible. If we win Galatasaray and we beat Bayern and we got 9 points, and I'm just still doing here, so that would be, if we win on that, we'd be ahead of Galatasaray. And who did Galatasaray play in the final game? Copenhagen. Yeah. So even if they beat Copenhagen, they'd be on 7. But we'd have to beat Bayern. So basically, as long as Copenhagen don't do a madness in their last 2 games, because if Copenhagen win their next 2, they'll be on 10, and then they'll be obviously on more than us. So we have to assume Bayern beat Copenhagen, and then we win our next 2. That'll be enough. That'll be enough. I think my maths is correct there. If I'm wrong, let me know. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time I've been wrong when it comes to maths on a live. So We beat Galatasaray and we beat Bayern. Bayern beat Copenhagen, or it's a draw, realistically. Copenhagen have to win their last two to get through. But we need to win both. Which is... Do you know what's actually kind of crazy? Is it's more likely that we beat Bayern Munich than we beat Galatasaray. Just because it's Bayern at home, and by that point, I mean, they're already through, so they might be like, who gives a shit? Who cares? They might play a bit of a weakened side. But then again, we've played weakened sides at Old Trafford this season. Like Newcastle, we've still been battered. So, I don't know. Don't really know if that will be that much. But the destiny is still in our own hands. If we win our 2 games, we'll go through. Provided that well, it's not in our own hands then, Owen. Because if Copenhagen win, they'll go. Mostly, we've got win the first game first. win the first game first. It's not in our hands, not at all. Court style, you fooled me. You said it's in our own hands. It's not. It's not in our own hands. It's in Copenhagen's hands. It's their hands. We've got to steal it out of their hands. Whatever, it can. We can still go through. But I do kind of agree with what people were saying. Answer says this. I prefer if we go out, I'd rather not be in the Europa League. I'd rather just go out. Basically, if we are to go out, obviously you don't want to. You want to get through the next stage of the Champions League, and look, getting through from sort of the jaws of despair can be hopefully a bit of a catalyst and something to maybe improve players' mentality, and prove that you can overcome stuff and can come back from stuff. But I do kind of agree with what people are saying when they say, look, if we're out, then I'd rather just be out. No more Europa League as well. I don't want to play that song ever again, that bloody intro. I mean, I'm near enough sick to the death of the Champions League intro this season as well. I mean, for all the hype and the excitement about that Champions League intro, now when we hear it, we mostly get angry because we've had to play it 4 times and 3 times we've lost. So, I'd rather just, if we're going to go out, let's just go out, focus on the league. I mean, we literally, by that point, we'd be 2 competitions down already this season. We'd only have Premier League and FA Cup. And maybe that might not be the worst thing in the world for us this season, right? To have a full week of preparation, maybe. But at the same time, is our poor form this season due to the fact that we're playing every 3 days? I don't know. I'm just not playing very well. Maybe you could put the injuries down to that, but like I said, I think that's more of sort of a medical and fitness department kind of situation, and I think that's a wider football problem actually as well, to be honest with you. So, I don't know if I put it down to that, but Rashford's not going to be available for that. But when it comes to Galatasaray, again, how are people feeling about it? I mean, I'm just trying to, when you get before a game and you look ahead. So you try and picture. It's like Doctor Strange in Infinity War and Endgame, when you try and look at all of the different possible outcomes in your head, the realistic ones. And for instance, Sunday, I can envisage a game where we beat Everton at Goodison Park. I can envisage quite a few different outcomes of that one and quite a few different ways it could go, both positive and negative. But I can envision, I feel like there's definitely certain outcomes where we win that game, whether it be fairly comfortably or it's quite scrappy, or we go behind and we can come back, win that game 2-1. I think we can do that against an Everton away at Goodison Park. When I'm looking at the Galatasaray game and I'm trying to picture all of the possible different outcomes, I don't see many positive ones. Like, when you can just trying to picture it. Like, what does that look like? what does all the positive ones look like? I don't know, realistically, with the Galatasaray one. The atmosphere is going to be very, very intense. I think the Everton game, also does play a part in it, because I think if we beat Everton, then there is a bit of sort of away momentum in hostile games, and our away record recently has been okay, but look who we've been playing: Sheffield United, Burnley and Fulham, and the atmosphere in all of those games was not that good, at all. So, but if we can beat Everton away, then that might be a bit like, right, building up some away momentum, hostile stadium, hostile atmosphere, that's pretty good. But the Galatasaray one, I cannot lie to you, I'm concerned about it. I cannot lie, because good teams have gone there and struggled. It's not even like a standards in the mud kind of situation. It's Galatasaray at home in the Champions League. It's always a tough game. Always, always difficult. Particularly for a group of players that just can't handle hostile atmospheres or any kind of pushback or any kind of, bad moment in the game. They just can't handle that. So that is a worry. Absolutely is a worry for that game. But we're not even focusing too much on that one at the moment. Just focusing on Everton on Sunday, which, the preview comes out tomorrow morning. Myself and DJ, spoiler here for me, I am predicting a United win on Sunday. I do think we can win that one. I just think it's going to come down to game management, which is my sort of worry and my concern. Everton got quite a few injury issues at the moment as well. Onana for them is out with a calf problem. See, it's not just Mason Mount. Onana for them out of a calf problem as well. Big miss. I thought he was going to really rough us up, and we were going to really struggle with him and struggle with his physicality. But I think that him being out, that opening 15-20 minutes, key, really important at Goodison Park on Sunday, because for me, it goes one of two ways. I think either Everton just completely on top, completely on United, constant, and United just kind of have to weather that storm, stay in the game as much as they can. Maybe Onana has to make a couple of decent saves, but just stay in the game, grow into the game, and then maybe build from there. Or we actually somehow manage the atmosphere fairly well, start the game pretty good, take the sting out of the game, have a lot of possession, and maybe have a couple of chances. And if that is the case, that is when it's like you have to take those chances. None of this 20-25 minute FC, none of this sort of 30 minutes into the match. I can't believe we haven't scored. We've had great chances, or sometimes it's not even necessarily gilt-edged chances, which is even more annoying, isn't it? Sometimes it's when it's the opportunities to have some good chances. We even had that against City in the Manchester derby at Old Trafford. They weren't gilt-edged chances, but there was a couple of times where Højlund was kind of through, or was one pass away from another player being through on goal, and it was just sloppiness while we didn't sort of create something out of that. And it could be a bit like that as well. So yeah, I do think we'll have chances early on, and again, it's just a case of taking them. Tabaslow says 35 left in terms of the give them another reminder. Yes, for everyone that is still watching, 233 of you, if you are watching, and other people are watching after the fact. People might watch this tomorrow morning and be like, damn, I missed out. This is why sometimes you've got to tune in live to late night news. Remember, if we get to 150 likes, Tabaslow will be gifted memberships this evening. They will be given gifted memberships this evening, and it could be you. You could be the lucky one that gets gifted a membership, and you get access to UV Raw. Every time I say it, Marcel shows up to the right of me, which is fantastic. That's from Man United versus Chelsea towards the end of last season. What did we win that game? 4-1. And it's a long episode. It's 41 minutes or something like that. 41 minutes, I think. And you just really see a full day of sort of traveling, and you see a lot of Marcelness in that episode. You see him traveling in the car with Flex and Josh. You see him outside of the ground. You see him, I think they're in a box that day at Old Trafford, and then you see him on the way home. But again, it's not necessarily just the latest episodes. It's also the back catalogue, because like I've said, there are some just peaches of episodes in there. The members will probably know this better than I. But the best UV Raw episode for me, it's probably got to be Marcel and his watermelon on the train. It's an all-timer. It really is. It's got to be, because that one also has him with his car spray. I think he's got his which he just carries around with him. Car freshener spray, and it's massive. He sprays it. It's honestly, it's like dry ice when the Undertaker came out. It's nuts. That's probably the best UV Raw episode. And like I said, because also he's sitting on a train with strangers, on his way back home, eating, I think it's Marks and Spencer sort of watermelon slices, chunks, whatever you want to call them, and he's he goes on like a 4 or 5 minute charm offensive to Josh. You've got to have these watermelons, mate. Honestly, you've got to try it. You've got to try it. And Josh, like, I don't want it. You've got to. No, you've got to. Please, for me. If you're my friend, you will have this watermelon slice. Like Josh, I don't want it. Eventually, he has to give in, but it gets even better because then he starts giving them to people just on the train. Excuse me, would you like some watermelon? What's wrong with them? Nothing. And then he goes, how would you describe it? And the guy's like, juicy. And he goes, oh my God. It's crazy. So you get that if you remember. And we are 28 likes away from Tavislog gifted out those members. So there you go. Game Fanatic with the super chat says Mount injury equals one step closer to Donny redemption. I don't think Donny's gonna get it. I don't think Donny's going to get that redemption that maybe you're looking for, Game Fanatic. I heard there were rumours and reports, weren't there, that perhaps Man United and Galatasaray were going to work out a deal for Donny van der Beek. Obviously going over there to Turkey. He was linked with a move away recently. I still can't believe he's at United, realistically. I do think that maybe perhaps upset some people at Old Trafford because he was definitely one of those players that was on that list that he's going in the summer. I mean, Fabrizio Romano was pretty firm with his reporting about him in the summer as well. Like, he's definitely going. Definitely going. And then never happened. And I think there was some frustration because it wasn't as if there weren't offers for Donny. You know, like sometimes when a player doesn't leave and you go, really, did no one come in for him? There's a lot of football clubs in the world, and a lot came in for him. I mean, clearly, I guess they weren't up to the standard that he was looking for. I mean, it was, I think didn't Luton make a loan bid, or Lorient in America, in France, made a bid. But maybe he wanted a Champions League club, or at least a club playing European football, or maybe waiting for, to go back to Ajax. I don't know. But that's another one. We were talking about earlier on, when can you describe a certain signing as a flop? Donny van der Beek, flop. Absolutely flop. I was saying that last season, and people were talking about the Donny van der agenda and all that kind of stuff. But my thing was just a case of when he was getting involved and when he was playing, what was he realistically doing? And I do think it's fair when people go, wow, he never had a run of games and he was never had that sort of consistent starting place at United, which is fair. But sometimes when that is the case, when you do come on, got to take your chances, got to make it count. And another one that's had fitness problems. I mean, Van der Beek's had a lot of injuries, even during his tenure at United. He's been out of action a couple of times, a long time. And even when he went to Everton on loan, that was when Ranić was at United, wasn't it? And didn't play a ton of games because eventually he got injured, and so it just hasn't worked out. I don't think he's been in a Netherlands squad for ages, as well, which is a problem for him. So I was a big advocate for him going in the summer, just for the case of, again, it's good for his career. He needs to play football. I mean, so many players come to United, don't they? And their career not only falters, but like internationally as well. I was thinking this earlier on about Donny and about Jadon Sancho. I mean, two players there, nowhere near the international setup for their respective countries. And I was thinking that about Mason Mount as well. It's going, if the trajectory continues on for him, and given the midfielders that sort of are in the England setup at the moment, he'll struggle. Like, he'll struggle to get back into the England side. I mean, thankfully Gareth Southgate likes him, but he'll struggle to get into it because there's a lot of good midfielders for England right now. Donny, I still say that is when you can absolutely go club signing versus a player that maybe the manager at the time didn't want, in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. For me, it always felt like, it's crazy to think that Donny was linked with Real Madrid, but it felt like it was nailed on that he was going to Real Madrid, and then maybe because of COVID or whatever, it didn't happen, and they kind of pulled the plug on it, and it felt like, because that was in the 2020, that was in the pandemic transfer window, the sort of the later one, I think it was, wasn't it? And it felt like a player of just, we got a player that used to play for Ajax, and they were doing some good things a couple of seasons ago, and He's going to go to Real Madrid, and it didn't happen. So, let's get Donny. Why not? It's not that expensive. Let's just go get him. Let's get Donny van de Beek. And there was no real plan for him. I don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer really knew what to do with him as well. But didn't work out. Didn't work out at all. Game Fanatic said Donny made runs, but no one ever passes to him. That was also a thing that people kept saying, which is fine. And I know people say that and making good runs and all that kind of stuff. But eventually, in his position, certainly, a number 10. And that was also part of the problem, was no one could actually define what his position was. Is he a 10? Is he an 8? Is he a 6? For Ajax, he played more as a 10, didn't he? And then if he's a 10 at United, then he's definitely not going to play because that's Bruno's position. And then when he did play, people would say that, well, he's making good runs and good movement. Got good movement. But eventually, in that position, when you're a number 10, even if you're making runs and people aren't finding you, you've got to grab the game by the scruff of the neck. Bruno Fernandes does that quite a lot, realistically too. In that Bruno, for better or for worse, will grab the game by the scruff of the neck and will force it so that the ball is at his feet a lot. And will ensure that people give him a lot of the ball, and put themselves in those positions where the ball's constantly going to him and stuff's flowing through him. Donny don't do that. And Donny has the ability to ghost. I know we talk about Bruno ghosting through games, and he does, but not to the extent that Donny van de Beek does, because there will be games of football, or even when he come on, you go, Donny came on, did he? I didn't see him touch the ball. Or Donny started, did he? Did he? A couple of nice touches. Eventually needs to be more, doesn't it? So people said that about the runs and the passes, but needs to be more. And before people go, well, you say that about Rasmus Højlund, though, different position, isn't it? Because when you're a striker, you feed on service, and you don't necessarily want the striker to be dropping deep and having to try and go and chase the game or anything like that. You should have the service going through him. It's a bit different when you're a number 10 and you're meant to be creating, or even if you're a number 8 and you're meant to be sort of within the hub in the middle of the midfield as well. So, because I know people will say, well, what's the difference between that and Højlund? Højlund's a striker. Any striker worth their salt relies on service. It's different. If you play as a number 10, you can go chasing the game, and you can pick the ball up, and you can try and galvanise it. As a striker, that's, you can only do that so much, and you don't want to. Even a striker that's, elite, world class, like Harry Kane, he gets told all the time, well, you don't really want you dropping deep that much, even though I think I don't have to go on about how good I think Harry Kane is. I think it's fantastic. He's unbelievable. And it still blows my mind, some of the arguments that people were having in the summer about him. Not so much about his quality, but people were talking about resale value with Harry Kane and stuff like that. I think it's crazy. I just don't even get me started. He scored again for Bayern tonight, by the way. What's that, like 18 goals already in the Bundesliga this season? But if he went to United, I don't think he wouldn't be doing that, certainly. He'd still be struggling about the service. And he probably would be a flop, and we'd be talking about how rubbish it is. He'd probably be injured as well. Game Fanatic also says with the super chat, his most impactful sub was against Watford, Ollie, in his last game. It kind of felt fitting, didn't it? For a manager didn't use him that much. He came on, he was one of the better players in Ollie's final game. I do recall that as well. We are, how many likes away from 150? We are 19 away. 19. There is 232 people watching, to be specific, right now. So there is more than enough people to click that like button. And Tabaslaw, as I mentioned, will gift memberships. I don't know how many, but we'll gift memberships. So if you haven't already clicked that like button, there is no reason why we can't do it. No reason why we can't get 150 likes. So if you haven't already, got to push. Got to give a push to get to that number. 16 left right now. I'm not going to do the countdown all the way because that will be very slow, very tiring, very laborious. But it's only 16 to go. 16 likes to go. 12 now. Oh, it's flying up at the moment. Flying. 12. We're on the way. 10 to go. Soon we'll be in single digits. We can do it. Actually, I do have that sound bite. Actually,
you can do it.
There you go. You can do it. I believe. Again.
You can do it.
3 away. This has got exciting, hasn't it? And then we got it. 150. Ah, look at that. Ah, it's time. It's time, Tabaslaw.
Acknowledge me.
Oh, the question is, will Tabeslav follow through now? That's the big question. We all wait with bated breath. There you go. And 153 just for cushion room. No problem. Easy. Don't try and challenge the UV community. They'll keep raising the numbers. No problem whatsoever. 150? Yeah. Not at all. Not an issue. One Puggy says, who cares about Mount? It's not like Ten Hag plays him. Well, I did kind of mention that earlier on, didn't I? Talking about, can you miss a player? Can you miss a player that doesn't play that much? Interesting, certainly. Chris says, will Tabeslav follow through now? I hope not. Keep it clean, please. I didn't mean it like that. I meant follow through on his promise. No, not like that, Chris. I know it's late, but you don't have to be rude. You don't have to be rude. Nothing like that. Ian says, Donny doesn't touch the ball. How many passes did McTominay have in the last full game he played? Wasn't it like 9? Totally agree with that. I don't disagree with that. The crazy thing is with McTominay, though, is that he scores goals. He does score goals, which is crazy. That one, that was the Sheffield United one. For all of the him barely touching the ball, for him still scoring, it's crazy. That's what he does. I don't know how. I don't know how he does it. Insane. And there you go. Look, Tabeslav there's one thing about Tabeslav, yeah? Mod, member extraordinaire as well, but also man of his word. He set the challenge earlier on as well. And he said, if you get to 150, I'll gift memberships. And look at this. Tabeslav gifted 5 Booker T settings, 5 memberships. And they've gone to Ian, Ed, Afro King, Flexington Steel. Yeah. And Yams has been gifted the memberships. Oh, what a show. Late night news. That's it for you guys. As I mentioned, the embargoed presser is tomorrow, which obviously I won't be able to do. I'm doing Survivor Series tomorrow, so you can check that out on my channel, Owen Wrestling News 365. A big weekend. Is there going to be returns? Is there going to be returns? Possibly. Randy Orton's coming back. First time in 18 months. CM Punk. Is he going to be coming back? Maybe. You never know. Either way, I'll be watching it live late tomorrow. Tomorrow. Technically Sunday. So come and join me then. Nevertheless, guys, thank you very much for joining me this evening. Have a great Saturday, Friday, Saturday into Saturday. It's late. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you all tomorrow morning for the match preview. I'm out of here. Peace.